What is going on, guys? We'll wait. All right, so we are live. Good afternoon, guys. The reason why I haven't been here the last couple days is because I had lost my voice. It is back, and I am back. So without further ado, we're just going to go right into it. This one is called Prioritizing Priorities. Hi, guys. My name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast One Life. Prioritizing Priorities. Do you ever feel like you are wasting your life away at work? Do you ever catch yourself saying, oh, yeah, you know what? I would love to, but. And that but could mean extra hours spending it at the office in a job that you hate. It could be spending it extra hours in your own business. The purpose of this podcast here is to make you aware of the trade-offs that are happening at every given point in your day. And those trade-offs are I get to spend my time doing something I love or doing something I should or have to do. The intention is not to make it wrong, but to make you aware of these decisions you're making. So this way you can be happy with those decisions. Let's just ask, are you happy in the work that you're doing? Does it fulfill a purpose, a sense of excitement, a sense of fulfillment? Next, do you ever find yourself saying, I would love to do X, but, and then fill in that blank? Lastly, are you happy with that trade-off? How long has this been going on for? If we were to fast forward 10 years, what would you be missing out on? Because you're over here doing this thing that you hate or that you don't get any satisfaction in. I'm going to go into a couple tangents, a couple stories. And my hope is by the end of this, you will look into your own life and you'll question, all right, well, am I doing something that I'm happy putting my time here? As well as, well, what am I missing out on by devoting all this time? You could be perfectly happy in your career choice as well, right? It could be your work. It could be your time at the gym. Anything that you're doing in excess, it comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of doing something else. I am currently in the process of moving production spaces for my cold brew and espresso. While I was getting ready to do one of my batches, the landlord or the leaser of the property came over. We were talking about business, and she had been leasing this kitchen for I don't even know how many years. She used to have a catering company before that. Looking at this next chapter in her life, she thought back on it, and I asked her, I was like, well, how was it? Tell me about your experience. Like, what would you do over? Like, what did you learn? Kind of looking up in the air, she goes, you know what? I would have spent more time doing things that I enjoyed. I would have spent more time just having fun because I worked all the time. I was so fixated on working that I didn't leave much time for anything else. It's one of those things whenever I read about what the biggest regrets are of people who were literally on death's door, like where they're ready to get in, knock on that door and pass over to the next life, what their biggest regrets are. The regrets are not being who they know they are, like being afraid to show who they really were, and not doing things such as travel and just spend more time doing the things that would fill them up, that would bring them joy. That includes spending time with people that they cherish and value and love. Another story. I was talking to a family member. We're talking about work. She is extremely successful at what she does. In this new role, I said, well, how's it going? It was okay. I'm like, well, what do you mean okay? you're doing great. You're moving up in your career. I know she does an amazing job. She's super intelligent. But something was off. I asked, well, isn't this the job that you wanted? Wasn't this like your dream role? And she told me, she goes, well, no, it wasn't my dream role. Like, I wanted to go into a different role, but my superior wanted me to do this other role. Likely it was because she was really, really good at what she does, and she would add more to the bottom line, but would she really? You see, when you don't allow people to go after and do the things they love, eventually they may leave, or their work is going to decline because their hearts are not truly in it. When I asked, I said, well, why don't you just say, hey, I want to switch over to this role. If I can't switch over to this role, then I'm going to leave the company. She goes, yeah, well, I could die tomorrow, and the very next day there will be a posting for my position. When she said that, it was coming from the place of, you know what? What am I doing all of this for? Like, why am I putting all of this effort into building someone else's business, making someone else's dream a reality, when the very next day, if I were no longer here, it would continue to go on as if I didn't even exist, as if I wasn't even a part of it. It's an important decision that we have to make on how we spend our time. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't devote yourself 100% and say no to events and going out with friends, and say no to these family events that you were invited to because you have something that you have to do for work. I'm not saying any of that. What I want you to do is just be okay with where you're putting your time, and that you are happy with where you're putting your time. Because time is the one thing you cannot get back. So where are you putting your time? And are you happy where you're putting it? Speaking from my own example, I travel several times a year. Some of the trips are trips that I know that I really, really am looking forward to. I visualize it, I'm planning it, and I know when I go on those trips that the experience is just going to be a pure ecstasy. It's going to be amazing. But there are also those trips where I know I'm just literally trying to escape because I'm so involved in the day that in my work, I don't leave much opportunity to do anything. I shouldn't say I don't leave any opportunity to do other things. It's that I get into this comfort zone, this habitual way of living. And as a result of being back in this mode, I literally shut everything else out. There's another episode I'm going to do, and it's about getting messy with life. And how I believe that this is ultimately why people don't step out and try different things because they're afraid of it getting messy. But that's a different episode altogether. But they are related. Because that fear of getting messy could be that very same fear of holding you back from the career that you would love. That fear of feedback or criticism from someone else because you chose to do something that was important to you. So let's go back to those three questions. Like, let's go to work, right? Because your work consumes the majority of your day. And I want to get this in your head because it's so important. If your work is consuming the majority of your day and you're miserable at work, that equals being miserable in life, right? If you spend 3/4 of your day miserable at work, right, and you have the other quarters, pretty much you're going to sleep, then your life is miserable. But I want you to get real as to where you are, so this way you can decide whether or not you're willing to make a change. Second question, what are you missing out on? Right? By being in this, by devoting all this time to this career that you hate, what are you missing out on? I mean, you can miss out on time with family, time with friends, building relationships that matter, starting your own business and something that will feed you and light you up. Traveling around the world, doing something, right? Because you cannot do it now because you don't have the time. And lastly, are you willing to continue to make that sacrifice? And this is not a zero-sum game. I'm not telling you to drop everything, drop everything right now and to literally just go into a new career. I'm not saying that at all. But if you want to, and you're able to, then I highly encourage it. It really comes down to your degree of risk. Because if you stay in that comfort zone, you can stay in there for the rest of your life until there comes a point where you get pushed out just because you've hated it for so long. Your body, you're forced into it. It's become necessity. But we don't want to go there. You want to start with the end in mind and put intention into everything that you do. Myself, for example, my intention for this year is to make my work play. Sometimes I get so focused where I love what I do, but I've literally haphazardly created my company. So almost I was becoming a prisoner. I felt like a prisoner at times, but conscious of what needs to be changed. Now I'm taking the steps, and those steps are going to be a lot of discomfort because they're going to force me to step outside of my comfort zone. Just like everything worthwhile in your life is going to require you to step beyond your comfort zone. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope that at the very least, you are starting to think differently about your decisions and look at the trade-offs. Because by spending that extra hour at work, the work you hate nonetheless, you could be spending it maybe tucking your son or daughter in, reading them a bedtime story. What is more valuable to you? If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, share it with somebody who needs to hear this message. If you would like to ask a question or comment, you can do so by visiting my website at www.donnyrouse.com, DONNYRAUS.com. Remember, you only get one life. Live it. God bless, and I will see you.